Here was a really good comment from Zane Engineers Life. If that's a good YouTube channel. If you guys haven't heard of it, you should go check it out. He gives a lot of like entrepreneur type advice. He said, "What is the typical percent of revenue budget that a general contractor in the sub 1 million per year range should plan to spend for marketing website ads? What seems to be the sweet spot?" So I responded to him, but I'll go over my response here because I spent a lot of years like trying to think this way where for a general contractor, which could be any GC in the United States, like what's the percentage of their revenue they should spend? And if you Google it, you'll find things like we could just Google it right now. Like what percentage of revenue should a general contractor spend for marketing? And you'll get a bunch of answers. Like this one says 15%. This one says 7 to 8%. But I don't think this can apply directly to you without addressing your specific situation, which I explain in this comment. So my response was it varies widely and it depends on the supply and demand of customers in a given local market. So we've all heard of supply and demand. The supply in this situation is the amount of customers available. So if you do remodels, how many remodeling customers are available to you in your market in a given year? And then the demand is how many general contractors in your area are there competing for these same number of remodeling customers. So I give an example, a general contractor in a city with around 40,000 residents where they're competing general contractors, so the other companies aren't very aggressive with their marketing, they could easily pass the 1 million a year revenue mark, only investing 6 to 10,000 a year. And I've seen it over and over again with people hiring my marketing team to do their marketing and they spend $10,000 a year and they blow past $1 million. So that's only 1% of revenue, which is way below these estimates that you're seeing online. That same exact general contractor could move to a place like Los Angeles and to pass $1 million a year, he could easily have to spend 100,000, which would be 10% of the revenue. So 1 to 10%, and he might even have to spend more, maybe 15%. It's so competitive that when you try to buy customers and you compete with your dollars against all these other general contractors, most of whom are bigger than you and better at marketing than you end up having to spend a ton of money. And when I talk to new companies in these really, really competitive markets, I always ask them, are you open to moving and doing this somewhere else? Because there are so many cities across the United States with smaller populations, but like very little competition for you. And if you're strategic about where you go, you could easily create a really profitable business with a really small marketing budget if you do it right. So there's also the question of profitability because knowing your revenue numbers doesn't really tell me anything because I know general contractors that do over 1 million a year, but they only take home like 50,000. And I know other GCs who are doing like 400,000 a year and they take home half of it. And so how profitable you are is just as important as any of these other numbers. Because if you're only making 50K a year, you definitely don't want to be spending 100 grand to do your marketing. And so that's super important. So because of this really high variability, I try to tell people to focus on their own numbers. Like if you don't know off the top of your head what your revenue and profit was last year, like then you're not ready to invest in this stuff. Like you need to know that. And so like what was your revenue? What was your profit? How much you spend on marketing and how much money you make from the customers that come from that marketing. All these numbers are really important. And if you know what they are, then you can decide how much money you're willing to spend to buy customers. Because at the end of the day, if you're competing with dollars to get customers, you're just buying customers. And you need to know how much money you can spend to get one customer. And this is playing the game of averages. So you look at all the clients you had last year. Let's say you had 100 and you made $1 million, then your average client was worth 10 grand to you, $10,000. And you just work these averages all the way across to figure out what your marketing budget should be or can be, and what your targets are, meaning how much you are willing to spend to acquire a customer. And then you go out, and when you actually pursue some kind of marketing strategy, you can measure the results and know whether or not it's working for you. Are you on target? Are you acquiring customers at or below your maximum that you're willing to spend to get those customers? Or are you spending too much? Because if you're spending too much, you need to stop immediately and try to do something else. So it always depends on the market and the company, what their numbers are and what level of competition there is and how big the pool of customers is that they're going after. When I know all those things, then I can give them a budget. But I don't think it's helpful when you're addressing construction companies and contractors across such a wide range of situations to give like a blanket answer like, oh, you should spend 10%. I've found over the years the best way that I can help people is not to like give people flat budget advice on like a YouTube channel. I do one-on-one consultations. I ask people about all the numbers I just went over just now, and I look at their market and assess how many customers are available, and almost more importantly, what level of competition there is. And then I can give them reasonable options and a path to getting where they're trying to go, and tell them how much it's going to cost. So you can do a lot of this stuff yourself. Like if you don't know any of those numbers that I just went over, like go dig through your financials, your bookkeeping software, whatever you use, and try to figure out like how much, what was your revenue? What was your profit? Meaning like money left over after you paid all of your overhead and job costs and everything, and try to figure out, how much you're willing to spend to acquire one customer. So thank you, Zane, for that comment, and everyone go check out Zane Engineers Life. Super awesome YouTube channel. I get tons of inspiration from it, and I appreciate Zane.